is the greatest chess player of all time? E4, E5. This question is a favorite among all chess lovers. Knight to F3 and knight to C6. Of course, we all have a recency bias, so today the big three are Bobby Fischer, Garry Kasparov, and Magnus Carlsen. Those are the three players that have the strongest cards currently for the GOAT status. Bishop coming to B5, the Ruy Lopez opening. But what if it isn't Magnus or Garry or Bobby who is the best chess player of all time? Knight to F6. In this video, I will argue that there is a fourth candidate who have very, very strong claims to the title of best chess player of all time. A player you may have never ever heard about. So let's investigate this claim. Throughout the video, I will show you a beautiful game played by this possible GOAT of chess and present some, I think, compelling arguments for his status as the best ever. And then you can decide for yourself. But first, let's thank our sponsor, Brilliant. Brilliant is where you learn by doing, with thousands of interactive lessons in science, math, and more. Their hands-on approach makes even complex topics easy to understand and fun to explore. I've been diving into Brilliant's science courses lately, and it is amazing how they teach you to predict how systems work. Whether it's understanding how forces interact or how energy flows, it's really exciting to see these concepts applied in real life and get a clearer sense of how everything is connected. To try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/ASMRchess, or you can scan the QR code on screen or use the link in the description. The link also gives you a 20% discount on an annual premium subscription. Thank you. So who is this mystery possible GOAT of chess who had the black pieces in this game and faced castles by white in this position? This is a guy who played some absolutely amazing chess 100 years ago. None other than the German mathematician and world chess champion Emanuel Lasker, who had in this position employed the Berlin defense. Today, the Berlin defense is considered one of the absolute premier openings in chess, discovered by Vladimir Kramnik in his World Championship match in 2000 against Kasparov, the one time Kasparov ever lost a match against a human. He lost it to the Berlin defense. Ever since 2000 and this famous match where Kramnik became world champion, it has been the opening a mainstay in super grandmaster chess. But this game was not played in 2000 or after. It was played in 1896, 118 years ago at the time of recording of this video. Lasker employed this opening, which was considered dubious at the time, and in this position played knight takes pawn like so, temporarily winning a pawn. So this is only temporary because his opponent, Grandmaster by the name of Moritz Porches, plays pawn to d4, and these moves are still being played today. This position we have on the board is currently considered one of the main lines of the Berlin defense. Lasker plays bishop, coming here to e7. 2 years prior to this game, Emanuel Lasker had won the World Championship by unseating the first chess world champion, Wilhelm Steinitz. So he had been world champion for only 2 years at the time, and players and fans and enthusiasts of chess at the time were actually quite dismissive of Lasker at this point. He had only been world champion for 2 years. So was he really worthy? Well, here's one of the arguments for him. And people were saying, well, Wilhelm Steinitz was very old at the time. It's not so impressive to beat him. You've only been world champion for 2 years. You haven't proven yourself so much. But here's an argument for the GOAT status of Lasker. There would be an additional 25 years in the chess world with a concurrent reign as world champion for Emanuel Lasker, a total of 27 years, the absolute longest of any chess player ever. Porches in the position played queen to e2, a perfect move, and the basic idea of how white is going to win back their pawn. Now we see from Lasker, knight coming to d6 with an attack on the bishop. This looks very strange if you're not familiar with the Berlin defense, but this knight coming back to d6 is an absolutely crucial idea in the opening. So what goes on here is that this bishop is attacked. It must move to keep the tempo up. White captures this knight on c6. Bishop takes c6, like so. This is recaptured with the b pawn. B takes c6. And now white can get the pawn back with pawn on e4. Pawn on d4 takes e5, also attacking the knight. But the knight has a very interesting square it can go to. This is pretty advanced chess. Knight coming to b7, a untraditional square for the knight, but it has a great journey ahead of it from this square. This is all premeditated by the great Emanuel Lasker. So how can white develop their play? How can they keep pushing their pieces into play? We see pawn to b3. And here this has a very simple idea. It wants to activate this bishop coming, for instance, here or here, since this diagonal may not be as effective, particularly with black's control, utilizing this battery and looking at the g5 square. Lasker castles, getting the king to safety. And we can see that he's very content. Of course, these pawns are not ideal. They are doubled, but he has the bishop pair. And that is something that Lasker liked very much. Bishop coming to b2, now being on the longest diagonal, protecting this pawn, and X-ray attacking the g7 pawn, and with it the castled king position of black. Now it's time for Lasker to strike in the center and plays pawn coming here to d5. And if you know your internet culture, and I know that you do because you're a person of absolutely exquisite taste, I can tell, and then you know that a certain move in chess is forced. So that is en passant, and white plays the best move. Pawn takes pawn on d6 en passant. If you don't know this, it is a real move, and I have a video, a shorts video explaining it. So this is actually allowed. And Lasker undoubles his pawns. Pawn on c7 takes on d6. Material equality has been restored. White has almost completed their development. Now they can take the knight on b1, put it on d2, and the rooks are connected. The king is castled, all pieces are in play, everything is good. But this queen may be a little bit exposed, and we can see Lasker targeting the queen with rook coming to e8. Now if this bishop moves, it would unveil an attack on the queen. So how will white react? Well, rook coming from f1, backing up the queen, coming to e1, so that if the bishop moves, then the queen can actually capture the rook. Then queen takes queen, and rook takes rook, winning for white. And that is why we don't see this bishop move, but instead Lasker is saying, okay, I have the two bishops. This one's not really developed. Let me just play bishop coming here to d7, keeping a little bit of an eye on this pawn. Now the rooks are almost connected. And now it's time to pay very close attention. Knight coming to e4. This is a slight mistake. And now I want you to really pay close attention to the next barrage of moves that Lasker is going to throw at white. So today we do see the Berlin defense played by Magnus Carlsen, played by all these super grandmasters, Nakamura, Firusha, Prague, Gukesh, the world champion, Dingleren, and so on. And we see them play their best games. When they play their best games, they play with an accuracy of maybe 97%, 96%. That is the absolute pinnacle of human chess understanding and capability. How accurate do you think Lasker played this game more than 100 years ago in this opening that is today considered to be the cutting edge of chess understanding and theory? How accurate do you think it is? I'll reveal the answer in a couple of moves. What I want you to understand is that for the next many moves, everything that Lasker does is a threat. He is moving with the force of a sledgehammer now, and he plays pawn to d5. This attacks the knight. The knight will have to move, and it could maybe come to g3, but that is not ideal. So humbly, white has to move the knight back to whence it came on d2 rather. And we talked about this rook lining up with the queen, and now with all these pieces connected, Lasker is ready for a bit of a flashy tactic. Bishop moves, but where? Actually, all the way to a3. There's no time for bishop takes bishop because rook takes queen would lose the game on the spot for white. So how can white get out of this problem? Well, bishop moves, so it can't be captured, and it has to go here to e5 to block the rook from capturing the queen. But Lasker is not done with the threats. What do we do against pinned pieces? We attack the pinned pieces. This bishop is pinned to the queen by the rook, so we attack it. How? By playing pawn to f6. That bishop can't easily move because, of course, we lose the queen. So, is the game just over? No. It is a very strong player, a grandmaster with the white pieces. So all of this was calculated, and there is a single way to get out of this knot that white finds themselves in. And that is queen coming here to a6, getting out of the pin, leaving the bishop to be captured, but threatening this bishop and the knight as well. Lasker says, I'll capture this bishop. Thank you very much. So now he has both bishops captured, and more importantly, he has established the center pawn duo controlling all these squares in white's side of the board. So white recaptures their piece by playing queen takes on a3, getting the bishop back. But all of this has been forcing, and Lasker continues to play forcing moves. Now pawn coming to e4 with another attack against the knight. All of this is absolutely 100% accurate. If you put these moves into the best chess computer in the world, it will say that these are the best moves. These are the moves that the modern chess AI would also play. Knight comes to d4, and Lasker wastes absolutely no time. The threat just keeps coming. Every move is a super serious threat. Queen coming to f6 with a attack on the knight, also looking a bit at this pawn here on f2, where the king may start to feel the heat a little bit. So we have a couple of arguments for Lasker as a GOAT. So we have, of course, that he is the longest reigning world champion ever, 27 years, which is pretty incredible. We have the fact that all the way back in 1896, he was playing this cutting-edge opening, the Berlin defense, and let me reveal his accuracy in this game. 97%. So basically, this game is, from a technical chess understanding and chess skill perspective, is indistinguishable from a modern game played with all the developments in theory and chess understanding by our best players today, such as Magnus Carlsen, Nakamura, Firouzja, Gukesh, Dinglerin. There is no inaccuracies, no mistakes, and no blunders by black in this game, and actually only really one inaccuracy by white, and that was all it took for Lasker to play perfect chess and finish this game in just beautiful fashion. Pawn coming to c3, protecting this knight. So let's shift our focus as black and keep piling on the threats. Rook coming to f8, threatening queen takes f2 with absolutely devastating results. And here, white unfortunately is forced to play pawn to f3. And what is it? Our good friend Ben Feingold says, never play f3. But if you don't, you lose the game on the spot. But this is a very weakening move when considering the king here. Now the queen moves to g5, again with a threat. Now the other knight is in trouble. So how will white deal with that? There is only one way, and again has to move backwards, getting the queen to c1, protecting the knight. Okay, what is a new threat? How can we again, as black, throw in a new threat against white's position? Remember this knight here, and remember how it was placed in a very unconventional, to the untrained eye, a very unconventional way, but actually had a great journey ahead of it. The knight comes to c5. Looking at the d3 square, you can see if it's allowed to come here, it will be forking the rook, hello, and the queen, hello. And since the rook is stronger than the knight after the queen moves, knight takes rook, rook takes rook, and white will have gained a significant material, as we would say, advantage. So the threat is simply knight coming to d3. So again, a very serious threat. This is dealt with in a very nice way by white, but again, it's a backwards move, so there is a concession, but the threat is met. The knight comes to f1, and that means that if the knight jumps in now, you could play like, it's called a Zwischenzug, an in-between move, and play queen takes queen, and actually winning, so there's no time to play this move just yet. So Lasker plays queen coming to g6. A subtle move. It looks like it doesn't come with a threat because the queen isn't threatening anything. But I always say in chess, don't look at the hand. Don't look at the hand moving the piece, because that will mislead you into thinking that is the only thing that is relevant. No, actually this move comes again with a threat because it renews the threat. Now this knight coming here again is a winning threat, so white has to deal with it again. And how does white deal with it? By moving the rook to e3, so that after the knight comes to d3, there is no fork and the queen can move. Actually, probably you should capture here and just say, try to save the position. Rook takes knight, pawn takes, it's a losing position, but queen coming here was the reply. So there is no fork and white is still able to fight. But again, this unrelenting, super accurate and super aggressive play by Lasker. He plays the knight coming to f5, and just look at the beauty of this knight's journey. It started out of the opening on b7, untraditional, we would say if we are a bit naive, then coming here with a threat, coming here with a threat, and now coming here with a checkmate threat. It's just absolutely merciless. So, knight comes to g3, blocking the checkmate threat, but of course it is a very, very difficult position. Why black has all these pawns controlling the center, rook, knight, queen, all in the attack against this semi-exposed king. And we will again find the most threatening, the most forcing move. Lasker plays pawn coming to h5. The threat is to play the pawn on to h4, attacking the pinned piece. If the knight moves, well, checkmate on g2. So we have to do something about that. And here it is. The knight here, this knight, again a backwards move. Knight comes from d4 to e2, so that after this advance here, we could chop off this knight. So we are not going to allow that as black. And of course, in this game, I chose an example to really showcase the versatility of Lasker. Everything is a threat. Everything is very methodical, extremely accurate. But of course, you can also play brilliant, beautiful sacrifices if they are the best move. And indeed, in this position, we get this cool sacrifice. Knight takes on g2. Again, forcing white's hand. So it has to be captured. King takes g2. And what is the follow-up? Is it to push this pawn? No, we want to get the king really out in the open. Let's play with more force. Let's play pawn takes pawn on f3. And that is check. Rook takes pawn. Looks like it is adequately defended, but Lasker is not done being brilliant. He's not done sacrificing pieces. Bishop comes to h6, so this sacrifice has to be accepted. King takes bishop on h3, and you would think maybe rook takes rook is the move here, but actually even more accurate, queen coming to g4 with check, meaning the king will now have to go to g2. And now queen captures the rook, again with check, everything super forcing. And now the king goes back to g1. So how do we finish off the game? How do we get the sacrificed material back? Just a little move here, again moving with a lot of aggression and creating a very forcing threat. Pawn on coming to h4 with an attack on the knight. And the game is absolutely 100% over. White tried one last trick, coming to the worst square a knight can really be on, here right on the edge on the board, trying to defend f2, but now we see how Lasker just very cleanly ends the game. So you can't come here with the checkmate, but how about just going to e3 with check? And this ends the game. White resigned, but why? Well, if you put the knight in between, we just capture that. Check, the king moves, and you are down material, and the attack is raging on. It's checkmate in forced checkmate in 6 moves. And if you don't do that, and instead you go to g2, there is a super satisfying checkmate that I'm sure Lasker regretted was not able to play out over the board. Can you find checkmate in 1? And it's not coming here with the queen. It's not coming here with the queen. It's actually not moving the queen at all. It is pawn coming to h3, and that would be checkmate. So that's the game. Lasker went on to dominate chess for the next 2 decades, and he is really the first player in history that played accurate chess. With him, we can sort of see the end of the Romantic era with Steinitz, Zukertort, Blackburn, all these people who played beautiful, brilliant, attacking chess, but were not playing accurately. Lasker was a very, very accurate player, and many people has a very great misunderstanding of him, because at the time Zukertort wrote of him that he did not care about what was the good move and what was the bad move. Instead, he played the psychologically most unpleasant moves for his opponents. And that is simply not true. Kramnik, who is today gone off the deep end a little bit, but is one of the greatest chess players of all time, and who reinvented the Berlin defense, maybe inspired by Lasker, has said, well, of course, the most psychologically possible unpleasant moves are the best moves. And it's simply not true that Lasker favored certain moves because they were unpleasant for his opponents. For psychological reasons, he simply played super accurate chess. So what do you think about all this? Do you think that there are compelling arguments for Lasker as the GOAT? You can write a comment. We can have a nice discussion about who the GOAT of chess is, and maybe you have some candidates for other GOAT status chess players that I should consider, and we can hang out in the comments and talk about that. And now, to finish the video, I would like to thank all my patrons who help make these videos possible. If you also want to support the channel and help me make even more and even better videos, there is a link to my Patreon in the description. Thank you for considering that. Thank you for watching, and I hope I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.